Till now, we had seen that revolution started in France with attacking the government buildings in order to form a people's military so that people could fight against the king's troops. And later we started to find out why this revolution started. And then we came to know that we started reading about the structure of the French society at that time. And we came to know that the French society was divided into three estates: first estate, second estate, and third estate. And you must be knowing by this time that first estate, the clergy, church and priest; second estate, nobility, aristocrats, royal family, all these people; and third estate were the common people. In the third estate, you had very poor people, the laborers, artisans, and all. Plus, you had merchants, businessmen, professionals like lawyers, teachers, and all. They all came in third estate. First and second estate enjoyed many privileges by birth. Third estate had no privileges. They had to serve the first and second estate, and they had to pay many taxes. Condition was very bad there. Population was increasing. Because of that, food grain was less, shortage of food grain, and because shortage of food grain was there, the price of things was increasing. So people were in great problem, great trouble. And on top of that, when Louis XVI became the king, he got a empty treasury. Nothing, no money. Now then, how is he going to run his government? He has to maintain his court. He has to maintain his royal life, maintain the army. How he is going to spend money on all these things? So finally, a decision was taken that tax will be increased. Now, who is going to pay tax? We all know that tax is paid by only the members of the third estate. So when the king thought that tax will increase tax, first estate was not troubled, second estate was not troubled. Who was troubled? Third estate. Because already they didn't have money, already they were paying so many taxes, already there was shortage of money, and they were not having money to buy things, and now the king is deciding to increase the taxes. From where are they going to pay all this? Now another thing we came to know that though the king ruled, the king could not take a decision by his own. The king had to call a meeting of the Estates General. So he called this meeting of the Estates General on 5th May 1789. And we had seen there that the last meeting was in 1614. So after so many years, he called this meeting. Now in the Estates General meeting, what happens? All the estates send their representatives. I have written it here. From first estate 300, from second estate 300, from the third estate 600. So we'll say very good. From first only 300, from second only 300, but from the third estate, say 600 people are called. The first discrimination that is done there is that the people of the third estate, the representatives of the third estate, are not allowed to sit. They have to stand behind the members of the first and second estate. They seated facing one another. And the people of the third estate had to stand. And only the rich people of the third estate, the educated people of the third estate, could become the representatives of the Estates General, could become the representative of the third estate. The poor, farmers, laborers, artisans, they were not allowed. Women, not allowed. But these people who were not allowed, they had sent about 40,000 letters in which they had mentioned their grievances, their problems which they were facing. and they wanted the king to solve all these problems. Till here we are done. Now let's see what happens. Okay, it seems very simple. 300 first estate, 300 second estate, and 600 members of the third estate. So there is equality. Now as we read, we'll come to know what equality is there. Let's read. Voting in the Estates General in the past had been conducted according to the principle that each estate had one vote. Now you see, each estate had one vote. One vote from first estate, one vote from second estate, and one vote from third estate. Though there are 300, 300 and 600 representatives, but each member will not vote. Their vote will be considered as collective one vote for one estate. Now see, the problem comes here only. First estate, lot of privileges. They don't have to worry about tax. Second estate, again lot of privileges. They don't have to worry about tax. And only the third estate has to pay tax. So suppose the king says, come on, we'll increase the tax. What will happen? First and second estate will say yes. So 2 votes in favor of yes and 1 against it. So who wins? Majority wins. Majority is supporting yes. So this was injustice actually what was happening, but this was the method of voting. Instead, they should have given per person 1 vote. Then there were chances that maybe the king's decision or his proposal would not be accepted by everyone. Some people from the first and second estate may also support the people of third estate. There may be some people who take sympathy for the third estate. They may support them. But because this principle of one estate, one vote was there, so there was never a chance for the third estate to keep their proposals to vote against and win. There was no chance like that. So this is what happened here also. This time too, Louis XVI was determined to continue the same practice. But members of the third estate demanded that voting now be conducted by the assembly as a whole, where each member would have 1 vote. See, I already told you, the books of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the books of Montesquieu, John Locke, all these, their ideas were among the people. And because of that, people knew that now we should raise our voice for equality, for our rights. So here also that same thing happened. People said no, that old system will not be followed. We want 1 person, 1 vote. That system should be there. This was one of the democratic principles put forward by philosophers like Rousseau in his book, The Social Contract. When the king rejected this proposal, members of the third estate walked out of the assembly in protest. But the king said no. Because the king knew if he accepted this proposal, then it was sure that what he was thinking will not be done. What he was planning will not be done. So he said, no, I can't allow every member to have 1 vote. So the third estate members went out. The representatives of the third estate viewed themselves as spokesmen for the whole French nation. So these representatives, those 600 people who came as representatives of the third estate, they said, we are not only the third estate or representatives of third estate, but we are the representatives of the whole French nation. Why? Because 90% of the people belong to the third estate in France. So majority belong to third estate. All right. Only a small number, 10%, were first and second estate. So that they said we are representatives for the whole nation. And whatever we are saying it for the whole nation. All right. The representatives of the third estate viewed themselves as spokesmen for the whole French nation. On 20 June, they assembled in the hall of an indoor tennis court in the grounds of Versailles. They declared themselves as a national assembly and swore not to disperse till they had drafted a constitution for France that would limit the powers of the monarch. Now see, they protested, they said no. This old system, we are not going to support it. We want one person, one vote. If you agree to that, we are ready. King was not ready, so the members of the third estate went out. Now, what to be done? They went to the tennis court and they had a meeting there. And they decided that they'll sit there, they'll sit there and they will discuss what is to be done, the future plan, what are we now going to do. They declared themselves a national assembly and swore not to disperse. They named themselves National Assembly, a group of the people of the nation. And they decided that till they not make a constitution, the rules to run the government, till they not make a constitution in which the monarch's powers are cut down, till then they are not going to leave that place. They were led by Mirabeau and Abbasis. Mirabeau was born in a noble family, but was convinced of the need to do away with a society of feudal privileges. See, I told you. In the first estate and the second estate also, there are members, or there were members, who felt pity on the condition of the people of the third estate. And that is why the king did not agree to give one person one vote, because he knew that there are many in these both estates who will support the third estate, and his plan will fail. So we are seeing here Mirabeau and Abbasis. So Mirabeau, from the noble family, from the second estate, he brought out a journal and delivered powerful speeches to the crowd assembled at Versailles. So he brought out a booklet, told the people about what changes should be there. He gave a speech to the people, telling the people what changes should come in the country. Abbasis, originally a priest, member of the first estate, wrote an influential pamphlet called What is the Third Estate? So he wrote a pamphlet, a leaflet or a booklet in which it was described what is the meaning of third estate. So in this way, they tried to educate the people about their rights, what is to be done, and how they have to get their rights, and what form of government they should always fight for. While the National Assembly was busy at Versailles drafting a constitution, the rest of France seethed with turmoil. Now, they were in the tennis court and they had decided that till we are not able to draft a constitution, we are not going to disperse, we are not going to move from here, we'll sit here. But outside, what was happening? The meeting of the Estates General, that was gone because third estate people came out. They are having a separate meeting. Outside, what the public is doing, what is happening there? It is written the rest of France seethed with turmoil. That is, outside there was disturbance. People were confused. Uncertainty. People did not know what is going to happen. What changes are going to come? A severe winter had meant a bad harvest. The price of bread rose. Often bakers exploited the situation and hoarded supply. See, because of severe winter, crop was not good, shortage of bread, and because of that price increase. And what the merchants, the businessmen did, they hoarded the supplies. They kept the supplies somewhere underground, not bringing it, in order to create artificial shortage in the market so that the rate of things increase. This was done. After spending hours in long queues at the bakery, crowds of angry women stormed into the shops. So people had to stand in line to buy a packet of bread because of shortage. For hours, they are standing to buy one packet of bread. You can imagine. And many times they don't get only by the time their turn comes. So a group of angry women, they entered into the shops and they broke everything there, attacked the shop. And at that same time, the king had sent his troops also. In the beginning, we had seen. At that same time, the king had sent his troops also. Now what happened? The king's troops are also there. People are also angry. And people thought that the king has sent his troops to attack us. So they became more angry. And because of that, they were now ready to fight. And that is the way they attacked the fortress, prison, Bastille, and many other government buildings. On 14 July, the agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille. This was in the beginning, okay? In the countryside, rumors spread from village to village that the lords of the manor had hired bands of brigands who were on their way to destroy the ripe crops. And in the countryside, in the villages, another news spread, rumor spread. What was the other news that came? That the lords of the manor, that is the landlords, they have hired some people, band of brigands. All right, they had hired some people who would destroy the crops of the laborers, the ripe crops. Soumya Goyal, what is happening on the screen? You are changing your mask. All right. Caught in a frenzy of fear, peasants in several districts seized hoes and pitchforks and attacked chateau. They looted hoarded grain and burned down documents containing records of manorial dues. And then what happened? People were in a frenzy. They were disturbed. They were nervous. They were angry. They did not know now what to do. So they attacked the manor house, the house of the landlord. All right. The house of the landlord were known as chateaux. They attacked them, and whatever they got, whatever agricultural equipment they got, they took that, and with that they started attacking everything, breaking everything. A large number of nobles fled from their homes, many of them migrating to neighboring countries. So the nobles ran away, the landlords ran away, and many of them went to the neighboring countries to take shelter, to protect themselves. Faced with the power of his revolting subjects, Louis XVI finally agreed recognition to the National Assembly and accepted the principle that his powers would from now on be checked by the Constitution. Now, when Louis XVI saw this, that the people are totally agitated, the people are now not going to listen to me, so he gave recognition to the National Assembly, the assembly which made a new constitution for France. He accepted that and he said, yes, I am going to follow this constitution and my powers can be controlled by the constitution. There will be control on my powers now. On the night of 4th August 1789, the assembly passed a decree, that is a law, abolishing the feudal system of obligation and taxes. So on 4th August 1789, a new rule was passed in which all the feudal system, the landlord system, zamindari system, where the laborers had to pay tax to the landlords and all that was finished. Members of the clergy who were forced to give up their privileges. The first estate members, priests, members of the church, they were also told to leave all the privileges that they were enjoying. No taxes from now onwards. Tithes were abolished and lands owned by the church were confiscated. Church also had plenty of land. All that land was now taken by the government. And you see, as a result, the government acquired assets worth at least 2 billion livres. See now, when the government acquired on the land, etc., the extra land, etc., which the church and the nobles had, they got an asset of 2 billion livres. That much property they got. Unnecessarily, they were increasing taxes. Huh? France becomes a constitutional monarchy. So when the monarch agrees to work according to the constitution, it is called constitutional monarchy. When he agrees to work according to the constitution, according to the written laws, and the constitution or the set of laws will have a control on him. Its main object was to limit the powers of the monarch. So National Assembly had drafted the constitution and the main object was of the constitution was to control the power of the king. These powers, instead of being concentrated in the hands of one person, were now separated and assigned to different institutions, the legislature, executive, and judiciary. So these powers, which were now in the hands of only the king, were to be distributed among the legislative, executive, and the judiciary. All right, the power will be distributed. When power is distributed, they will check one another, and then no one will take a decision by his or her own. This made France a constitutional monarchy, and they have given a figure in which they have told us how people are elected there and what happens and who controls who. The Constitution of 1791 vested the power to make laws in the National Assembly, which was indirectly elected. Now see, National Assembly, how it was elected indirectly. That is, citizens voted for a group of electors who in turn chose the assembly. You can see the picture there. Active citizens, and then there are passive citizens. Passive citizens are the women, children, and all the young people below 25 years. All right, and 3 million men also who did not have money and did not pay tax. They were passive citizens. They did not have the right to vote. The active citizens, that is the only 4 million of a population of 28 million, they were active citizens who had money, property, everything. They were given the right to vote. They would elect 50,000 people. They were known as electorals. From this 50,000, 745 people would be elected. They were called National Assembly. All right. Then they would make the minister, they would control the king, control the ministers, and in this way, everything was done with. That is, citizens voted for a group of electors who in turn chose the assembly. Not all citizens, however, had the right to vote. Only men about 25 years of age who paid taxes equal to at least 3 days of a laborer's wage were given the status of active citizens. That is, they were entitled to vote. So who got the chance to vote? About 25 years of age, plus you pay tax also. A person who pays tax equal to 3 days wage of a laborer. All the governments fix a wage, per day wage for the laborer. So any person who pays 3 days or more than 3 days wage of a laborer as a tax, that person is eligible to vote. The remaining men and all women were classed as passive citizens. To qualify as an elector, then as a member of the assembly, a man had to belong to the highest bracket of taxpayer seat. In order to vote, you should be a person who would be paying tax equal to 3 days wage of a labor. Then in order to be elected as a elector, you should be doing something else, paying more tax. Then in order to become a member of the National Assembly, you will be paying more than that. Like this, they set up things. A person who is paying, suppose an example, a person who pays tax 50,000 is given the right to vote. A person who is paying tax 2 lakh, he can be elected as an elector. A person who pays tax 5 lakh, he can become a member of the National Assembly. This way, different brackets were set up in order to elect people. The Constitution began with a declaration of the rights of man and citizen. Now, in the Constitution, you can see the picture there shown there. The rights of man and citizen. That is, what are the human rights in a country? What rights a person should get, a citizen should get. That was there in the beginning of the Constitution. Rights such as right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, equality before law, were established as natural and inalienable rights. These rights were natural rights. Everyone should have this right. Right to life, to live, freedom of speech, free to speak, express your views, freedom of opinion. All should be equal before law, equality before law. These are natural rights, inalienable. It cannot be taken away from a person. Every person should have this right. That is, they belong to each human being by birth and could not be taken away. It was the duty of the state to protect each citizen's natural rights. And it was the duty of the government to protect everyone's natural rights. Got it, Ilya? On the next page, there are some symbols which were used, and these symbols were for the illiterate people to understand what nationalism means and what is happening, what they did in French Revolution. So let's see. The majority of men and women in the 18th century could not read or write. So images and symbols were frequently used instead of printed words to communicate important ideas. The painting by Le Baba uses many such symbols to convey the content of the Declaration of Rights. Let us try to read these symbols. Let's see. The first one, broken chain. What does it show? Chains are used to fetter slaves. Slaves are tied. They are bound by chains. Broken chains means freedom. Now you are not slave of anyone. A broken chain stands for the act of becoming free. Then a bundle of rods of passage. One rod can easily be broken, but not an entire bundle. So strength lies in unity. This message was given to the people. If you all stand together, if you all together fight for your rights, then no one can break you. The eye within a triangle radiating light. The all-seeing eye stands for knowledge. The rays of the sun will drive away the clouds of ignorance. You know, when sun comes, sunlight removes darkness. So knowledge, it will remove ignorance. People should get knowledge. So that is what is given in, we understand from this symbol. Then the scepter is there, which is the symbol of royal power. All right, it was used by the king. It shows royal power. Then there is another ring, snake biting its tail to form a ring, symbol of eternity. Things start and go like this in a circle. That is eternity. A ring has never a beginning nor an end. Then you have this red Phrygian cap, the cap which was worn by a slave when he became free. On becoming free, a slave would wear this to show that I am a free person. Blue, white, and red, these colors, they are the national colors of France. The feeling of oneness could come with that. The winged women, personification of law. Kanun, law was personified, given a shape, given an image, given an identity by a woman who has wings. And then you have the law tablet, where the law was written, where human rights was written and showing. You can see both the tablets are of same size. So it shows that everyone is equal before law. So these are the different symbols that were used in France in order to give the message to the people. I hope things are very clear till here. Okay, so we'll stop here for today. We'll stop here and we'll start with the next topic in the next class.